Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Didi. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhakta Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, Ambarish Maharaj offended by Durvasa Muni. Text number 21 onwards. Evam sada karma kalapam atmana pare adhiyagya bhagavati athokshaje sarvatma bhavam vidudhan mahimamam tannishtha vipra bihita shashasaha. In performing his prescribed duties as king, Maharaj Ambarish always offered the results of his royal activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is enjoyer of everything and is beyond the perception of material senses. He certainly took advice from Brahmanas, who were faithful devotees of the Lord, and thus he ruled the planet Earth without difficulty. So he was so surrendered, so devoted to the Lord, he offered the results of his royal activities to the Lord. And thus, as Shloka says, he ruled the planet Earth without any difficulty. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Yakitapasa, people are very much anxious to live in peace and prosperity in this material world. And here in Bhagavad Gita, the peace formula is given personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone should understand that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate proprietor of all the planets and is therefore the enjoyer of all activities, political, social, cultural, religious, economic, and so on. The Lord has given perfect advice in Bhagavad Gita, and Ambarish Maharaj, as the ideal executive head, ruled the entire world as a Vaishnava, taking advice from Vaishnava Brahmins. The Shastras enjoin that even though a Brahman may be well versed in the occupational Brahminical duties and may be very learned in Vedic knowledge, he cannot give advice as a guru until he is a Vaishnava. So Brahman is good, but he has to be Vaishnava, as Prabhupada said, to give advice. And Parikshit Maharaj was taking advice from all these Brahmins. Therefore, as indicated here by the words, Tan Nishtha Vipra Abhihita, Maharaj Ambarish took advice from Brahmins who were pure devotees of the Lord. For ordinary Brahmins who were merely learned scholars or experts in performing ritualistic ceremonies are not competent to give advice. Now, Prabhupada further comes to the present age. In modern times, there are legislative assemblies whose members are authorized to make laws for the welfare of the state. But according to this description of the kingdom of Maharaj Ambarish, the country or the world should be ruled by a chief executive whose advisors are all devotee Brahmins. Such advisors or members of the legislative assembly should not be professional politicians, nor should they be selected by the ignorant public. Rather, they should be appointed by the king. When the king, the executive head of the state, is a devotee and he follows the instructions of the devotee Brahmins in ruling the country, everyone will be peaceful and prosperous. When the king and his advisors are perfect devotees, nothing can be wrong in the state. All the citizens should become devotees of the Lord, and then the good character will automatically follow. So all the citizens should become devotees of the Lord, and then their good character will automatically follow. So if all the citizens are devotees and the king is a devotee, legislative assembly is a devotee, then it's like a Vaikuntha. Then this is how Maharaj Ambarish was ruling. And that is why he was pretty much using his whole day in the service of the Lord. Like in the previous verse we studied, Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. So he was using everything. Mind, legs, hands, body, eyes, everything in the service. So for one who is a devotee, as says in Bhagavatam, one who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead has all good qualities of the demigods. But one who's not a devotee of the Lord has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he's hovering on the mental plane and is certain to be attracted by the glaring material energy. So, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. So, one who is a devotee has all the good qualities of the demigods. So, this is how the scriptures term as devotees. Of course, we call ourselves devotees, but we are actually struggling to become devotees. We're not at all devotees yet. Citizens under the guidance of a Krishna conscious king will become devotees, and then there will be no need to enact any new laws every day to reform the way of life in the state. If the citizens are trained to become devotees, they will automatically become peaceful and honest. And if they're guided by a devotee king, advised by devotees, the state will not be in material world, but in the spiritual world. All the states of the world should therefore follow the ideal of the rule or administration of Maharaj Ambarish as described here. But that's a problem. Who wants to follow that? Nobody wants to become a devotee. They just think eating and drinking and enjoying, that is the goal of life. And for that, make money, whichever way possible. Make money, get money, that's all. Text 22. Ije ashwamedher adhiyakyam ishwaram mahavibhuti apochitta dang dakshine tatair vasishcha asita gautamādibhir dhanmanya abhistru tamaso saraswatim. In desert countries where they flowed the river Saraswati, Maharaj Ambarish performed great sacrifices like the Ashwamedh Yajna and thus satisfied the master of all yajnas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such sacrifices were performed with great opulence and suitable paraphernalia and with contributions of dakshina to the Brahmins, who were supervised by great personalities like Vasishtha, Asita, Gautam, representing the king, the performer of the sacrifices. When one performs ritualistic sacrifices as prescribed in the Vedas, one needs expert Brahmins known as Yogic Brahmins. In Kali Yuga, however, there is a scarcity of such Brahmins. Therefore, in Kali Yuga, the sacrifice recommended in Shastras is Sankirtan Yajna. Instead of spending money unnecessarily on performing yajnas impossible to perform in this age of Kali because of the scarcity of Yogic Brahmins, one who is intelligent performs Sankirtan Yajna. Without properly performed yajnas to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be scarcity of rain. Therefore, the performance of yajna is essential. Without yajna, there will be scarcity of rain, and because of this scarcity, no food grains will be produced, and there will be famines. It is a duty of the king, therefore, to perform different types of yajnas, such as Ashwamedh Yajna, to maintain the production of food grains. Annad bhavanti bhutan. Without food grains, both men and animals will starve. Therefore, yajna is necessary for the state to perform because by yajna, the people in general will be fed sumptuously. The Brahmins and Yogic priests should be sufficiently paid for their expert service. This payment is called dakshina. Ambarish Maharaj, as the head of the state, performed all these yajnas through great personalities like Vasishtha, Gautam, and Asita. Personally, however, he was engaged in devotion service as mentioned before. The king or head of the state must see that things go on well under proper guidance, and he must be an ideal devotee, as exemplified by Maharaj Ambarish. It is the duty of the king to see that food grains are produced even in desert countries, what to speak of elsewhere. So even in the desert country, where it says in desert countries where they flowed the river Saraswati. So that is where Maharaj Amrish performed great sacrifices. And if the sacrifice is performed properly and under the guidance of supervision of great personalities like Vasishtha Muni, Asit Gautam, so see all the leading sages were there to perform these sacrifices. So there cannot be any scarcity of anything. And in fact, I read somewhere or I heard that Amrish Maharaj, where was he ruling? It is said that he was ruling in this place in Rajasthan named Karoli, where these days Lord Madan Mohan is residing. So that is where he was ruling, and it is said there's a temple where the deity of Amrish Maharaj is there. So I guess we need to take a trip to Karoli and then to Jaipur.
Yes, Prabhu, I was just thinking.
Little late. I came back. Maybe next time.
I think it is a full 2 days, 3 days trip, maybe.
Yeah, because we have to take darshan of Madan Mohan ji and then Gopinath ji, Govind Dev ji in that order in
Yeah,
one
we
day.
have to go there and stay in thoroughly one day, and then morning we have to start. That is how it is.
Yeah, let's see. यस्य कृतिषु गीर्वाण सदस्य ऋत्विजो जनः तुल्यरूपाश्च निमिषा व्यदृश्यन्त सुभाससा. In the sacrifice arranged by Maharaj Amrish, the members of the assembly and the priests, especially Hota, Udgita, Brahma, and Advaryu, were gorgeously dressed, and they all looked exactly like demigods. They eagerly saw to the proper performance of the yajna. Swargo na prartito yasya manujairamar priyaha shanvad bhirugaya bhirutto uttam shloka cheshtitam. The citizens of the state of Maharaj Amrish were accustomed to chanting and hearing about the glorious activities of the personality of Godhead. Thus, they never aspired to be elevated to the heavenly planets, which are extremely dear even to the demigods. A pure devotee who has been trained in the practice of chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord and his fame, qualities, form, paraphernalia, and so on, is never interested in elevation to the heavenly planets, even though such places are extremely dear even to the demigods. So the citizens of Maharaj Amrish, of the state of Maharaj Amrish, they were so greatly devoted, they didn't care to go to heaven by performing these sacrifices. So devotees solely engaged in the devotion service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, never fear any condition of life. The heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same to a devotee. A devotee is always situated in the spiritual world. Therefore, he does not desire anything. He is known as akama or desireless because he has nothing to desire except to render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because Maharaj Amrish was a most exalted devotee of the Lord, he trained his subjects in such a way that the citizens in his state were not interested in anything material, including even the happiness of the heavenly planets. So they were so, king himself and the citizens, they're so greatly devoted. They didn't care for the heavenly planets. And here everywhere you hear about, oh, let's go to Swarga, let's go to heaven, let's go to Jannah to enjoy. But the devotees don't care. They understand even going to heavenly planets is a wastage of time, just like it says in Bhagavad Gita, Shine Punne Marte Lokam Vishanti. After After we exhaust our pious activities on heavenly planets, we have to come back. So what's the point? Samvardhayanti yat kama swarajya paribhavita durlabhanapi siddhanam mukundam hridi pashyata. Those who are saturated with transcendental happiness of rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead are uninterested even in the achievements of great mystics. For such achievements do not enhance the transcendental bliss felt by a devotee who always thinks of Krishna within the core of his heart. So for devotees, even the transcendental bliss of yoga or the siddhis because of yoga, they don't even care for that. A pure devotee is uninterested, not only in elevation to the higher planetary systems, but even in the perfections of mystic yoga. Real perfection is devotional service. The happiness derived from merging in the impersonal Brahman and the happiness derived from the 8 perfections of mystic yoga, anima, lagima, prapti, and so on, do not give any pleasure to the devotee. As stated by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, when a devotee has achieved the position of rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord through the mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he thinks the impersonal Brahman to be no better than hell, and he regards material happiness in the heavenly planets to be like a will-o'-the-wisp. So, happiness of impersonal Brahman, Brahm Jyoti, Brahmananda, and so many things we heard about, moksha. For a devotee, this is like hell. Why? Because there is no deities, there is no Krishna to serve. So he doesn't care. And material happiness to the heavenly planets, will-o'-the-wisp, like Akash Pushpayepe, which does not exist. There is no flower in the sky. So this is how he looks at the heavenly planet's material happiness. And as far as the perfection of mystic powers is concerned, the devotee compares it to a venomous snake with no teeth. I mean, it has no value actually. A mystic yogi is especially concerned with controlling the senses, but because the senses of a devotee are engaged in the service of the Lord, there is no need for separate control of the senses. For those who are materially engaged, control of the senses is required, but a devotee's senses are all engaged in the service of the Lord, which means that they are already controlled. Param Drishtva Nivartate. A devotee's senses are not attracted by material enjoyment. And even though the material world is full of mystery, the devotee considers this material world to be also spiritual because everything is engaged in the service of the Lord. Because a devotee does not see anything separate from the Lord. He sees everything in connection with the Lord and uses everything in the service of the Lord. So even the material world is spiritual world for him. The difference between the spiritual world and the material world is the mentality of service. Nirvanda Krishna Sambandhe. When there is no mentality of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's activities are material. It's very simply explained. Nothing is material if we are using it in the service of the Lord. So Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu says that which is not engaged in the service of the Lord is material, and nothing thus engaged should be given up. In the construction of a high skyscraper and the construction of a temple, there may be the same enthusiasm, but the endeavors are different. For one is material and the other spiritual. Spiritual activities should not be confused with material activities and given up. Nothing connected with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is material. A devotee who considers all this is always situated in spiritual activities. Therefore, he is no longer attracted by material activities. So even though the activities might look material, but his consciousness is always spiritual. His heart is always in rendering service. So he's always hovering on the spiritual platform. Saitam bhakti yogena tapo yuktena parthiva swadharmena hari prinam sarvan kaman shanaira jaho. The king of this planet, Maharaj Amrish, just performed devotion service to the Lord, and in this endeavor, practiced severe austerity, always satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his constitutional activities, he gradually gave up all material desires. Severe austerities in the practice of devotional service are of many varieties. For example, in worshipping the deity in the temple, there are certainly laborious activities. One must decorate the deity, cleanse the temple, bring water from the Ganges and Yamuna, continue the routine work, perform arati many times, prepare first-class food for the deity, prepare dresses, and so on. In this way, one must constantly be engaged in various activities, and the hard labor involved is certainly an austerity. So this is austerity devotees perform. It's not like devotees have to go to the Himalayas and sit in the snow or sit in the hot weather. No, this is our austerity. To do deity worship, as Prabhupada said, one must decorate the deity, cleanse the temple, bring water from the Ganges and Yamuna, and so on. Of course, after a while, it's not even an austerity. It's so much fun. It's a loving devotional service. Similarly, the hard labor involved in preaching, preparing literature, preaching to atheistic men and distributing literature door to door is of course an austerity. Tapo divyam. Such austerity is necessary. Yena sattvam shuddhet. By such austerity in devotion service, one is purified of material existence. Indeed, such austerity leads one to the constitutional position of devotion service. In this way, one can give up material desires. And as soon as one is freed from material desires, he is free from the repetition of birth and death, old age and disease. So this austerity of devotional service, and after a while, as I said, it's not even austerity. There's so much of love, there's so much of bliss. One wants to do more and more and more. Chanting. In the beginning, it was an austerity. Oh, 1 round, how am I going to do 1 round? Now devotees are doing 16, 32, 64 rounds because they enjoy it. So I guess we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so hope you all had nice Gita Jayanti program. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank
Jai
you so
Srila
much,
Prabhupada.